Indeed, strange things do happen. This is the story of a 24-year-old woman, Dee Ziegert, whose untimely death permanently changed the whole city of Agawam. Lisa was found dead in a wooded area 4 days after she went missing. Well, guess what? She had been sexually assaulted, and an autopsy done after her death showed that she had been stabbed in the neck. Long before her death, Lisa worked as a teacher's assistant at Agawam Middle School. She also held a second job at Brittany's card and gift shop. This was the exact place where she disappeared for days without a trace. Her mother, Dee Ziegert, had always described her as a unique girl who is outgoing and full of energy. Lisa was known for her wonderful affinity for children. Lisa's death was one of the most popular cold cases in the city of Agawam for more than 20 years, with no suspect publicly identified until Gary Edward Shoppe was arrested in 2017. The question on everyone's minds was, who was Shoppe to Lisa? What could possibly be Lisa's offense for Shoppe to have ended her life so ruthlessly? Is Shoppe walking freely now after the heinous crime committed? Well, you'll find out in this suspense-filled story. But before we go any further, please subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so that whenever we post a new video, you'll be the first to know. As a young girl, Dee Ziegert grew up in the city of Agawam, Massachusetts. Long after her graduation from college, she returned home to teach special needs pupils at the middle school. The school counselor there believed that Lisa was a gifted teacher who ensured that her students were taught well. Lisa's students were always praising her for how she helps them with their academic issues. Lisa's nightmare began on Wednesday, April 15, 1992, after leaving the middle school around 4:30 p.m. She got into her car and headed straight for Brittany's card and gift shop, where she was employed on weekdays from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. At 5:30 p.m., Lisa's sister, Lynn, stopped by the shop and left around 6 p.m. During her stay with Lisa, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The next morning, at exactly 8:45 as usual, Sophia Maynard came to open the store. Since it was a school day, she was surprised to see Lisa's car in the parking lot. The store lights were on, and the open sign was showing. Sophia thought that this was all strange, and couldn't fathom why Lisa would still be at the store. But then she remembered that Easter weekend was around the corner, and that the staff planned on blowing up balloons. Therefore, she thought that may be the reason that Lisa was still there. Sophia had not given any thought to anything until she entered the store. She shouted Lisa's name several times, but received no response. This was when she certainly knew that something wasn't adding up. She slowly went behind the counter and saw that all of Lisa's things were still there, including her drawings, handbag, and vehicle keys. So she went across the street to a restaurant and had them contact the police. The police discovered evidence of a struggle in the back storeroom. Several boxes had been damaged, and there were traces of blood on those boxes and some greeting cards outside the room. The Agawam Police Department, assisted by the FBI, conducted a thorough search that day. As usual, Lisa's family expected the best out of it, but feared the worst. Unfortunately, Lisa's half-dressed body was discovered in a wooded area on Easter Sunday, April 19th, 4 days after she went missing. The area that Lisa was found was around 3 kilometers away from the store where she was working. She had knife wounds all over her shoulders and throat. Even though there were several pieces of evidence at the scene, the murder weapon was not found. The medical examiner eventually confirmed that she had been sexually abused. Never before in Agawam's history had there been so much love and shared sadness. At Lisa's funeral, more than 1,000 people stood in the rain for 5 hours to honor her. Her family was so glad that so many people came because it showed what kind of person Lisa was and how much of an impact she had on her community. One of her students remembered how friendly she was to everyone and wished that the world contained more people who were like her. During Agawam's period of mourning, authorities continued their investigation. 3 crucial phone tips were received, which helped establish a timeline. At 8:20 p.m., the first call came from someone who had been in the store. They had made a transaction and received a time-stamped receipt. They did not observe anything unusual at the shop. The second tip was from a customer who entered the store at 9 p.m. She found the door open and lights on, but no one inside. She did hear some sounds, which she regarded as banging in the back room. She waited a minute before leaving when no one came out. This prompted officers to assume Lisa was in the store and in the back room around 9 p.m. After further investigation, it was discovered that Lisa had been lying on her back on the floor, and that there were 2 kick marks from her shoes on the bottom of the door. The third tip was offered by a woman who worked nearby. At 9:15 that night, the woman was on her way home. She observed a full-size Bronco or Blazer-style vehicle pulling off the road and into the area where Lisa's body would eventually be found. She reported that there was a driver in the front and that she thought there were 2 people, a man and a woman, in the back seat. She watched the female's head bounce up and down a few times as the car drove into the woods. The woman kept driving, as she thought that this was just a car full of kids. After that, there were no further tips. Prior to her abduction, Lisa had told some of her friends that she believed she was being watched. She also asked that her friends and family come see her at the store often because she didn't like being there all by herself. This made detectives think that her killer had been following her for weeks before she was killed. In 2017, investigators looked at 11 suspects who had previously refused to provide a DNA sample. Gary Edward Shoppe, a 48-year-old Agawam resident, was married with a young son at the time of the murder. He had no criminal history. However, he had been a suspect since 1993, when his now-dead ex-wife told her attorney that she suspected him to be Lisa's murderer. She further explained that he returned home late that night without telling her where he went. Additionally, he had cuts on his hands, and she noted that every time the case was reported on television, he appeared to be fascinated with it. She also allegedly discovered some disturbing writings in his diary, leading her to suspect he was responsible. His ex-wife would later flee with their son and sought refuge with family members because she was afraid of him. Unfortunately, because she was an alcoholic, her suggestion was not considered at that time. In September 2017, a state trooper arrived at Shoppe's residence with a court order which required him to produce a DNA sample. Shoppe was not present at the time, but his roommate was. The trooper handed Shoppe's roommate a business card and urged him to contact Shoppe. Shoppe then wrote 3 documents and left them at his girlfriend's house after his roommate informed him of the investigators' visit. These included a confession to Lisa's murder, a last will and testament, and a brief apologetic letter to the Ziegert family. Shoppe then ran away from the area. Later that day, Shoppe's fiancé found the letters and turned them over to the police. Shoppe was later discovered in a hospital, having attempted suicide. Later on, his DNA was matched with the evidence found at the crime scene. On September 16, 2017, he was arrested and charged with murder, aggravated rape, and kidnapping. On September 25, 2019, Shoppe surprisingly pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. As a result, the allegations of rape and kidnapping were dropped. He acknowledged in court that he was responsible for Lisa's death. He was sentenced to life in prison without any hope of being released. Shoppe admitted that he had always been fascinated by kidnapping and bondage, and that on the day of the murder, he let himself do something terrible. He maintained that he had no intention of killing Lisa when he abducted her, but that events went out of control. Police believe that he became obsessed with Lisa after acquiring a music box from the shop. He ultimately gave the box to his then wife. What do you think could have made Shara murder Lisa in cold blood, despite not having the intention of killing her? Could it be a case of mistaken identity? Was Shara upset about something when he walked into her shop? Do you think there could have been a more deserving punishment for Shara, other than life in prison? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.